Hello, my name is Monica Peters and welcome to Real Black. Recently, friends of Real Black had the chance to preview the new Chris Rock movie, I Think I Love My Wife, with co-star Kerry Washington in attendance. The next day, Real Black had the opportunity to catch up with Kerry for this up-close and personal portrait.
For me, there's always a balance in being a responsible artist activist or responsible human being in society today. I always have to weigh my artistic choices with their societal relevance.
Richard Marcus Cooper is married. Tied the knot till death do you part.
Mm-hmm. Something strange about that?
Just not the Richie I knew.
People change.
You happily married?
Yeah, I'm happily married.
No, you're not. You didn't say it right.
I try not to let my politics limit me artistically and, say like, well, I can't do that because I don't ever want to play a black prostitute, or I can't do that because I don't ever want to play, a drug addict. I really try not to do that. What's important to me is to make sure that my characters ring true, that they reflect a trueness to society. Because if I can bring out the true humanity of a character, then I'm not perpetuating a stereotype, I'm actually revealing a truth. I Think I Love My Wife is a new film that's written and directed and produced and starring Chris Rock. I'm just acting in it. And it is a remake of Eric Rohmer's 1974 film called Chloe in the Afternoon. It's basically the story of a middle-aged man who's got it all. He's got a house in the suburbs and a beautiful wife and 2 gorgeous kids and, a great career, and he's really bored. And into his life walks an old flame, an old party girl that he's known, and she kind of tries to entangle him in her web of seduction. And that's my character, Nikki True. Acting was really kind of like an after-school activity. And it was just something that really stuck. I've always felt really at home on stage, and in acting, I've always felt a real peace and fulfillment from creating these other people and bringing humanity to these other characters. And I did some television work when I was in high school, like I was in an after-school special and on a soap opera, and then after college I did my first feature, which was called Our Song. It was an independent film that was at Sundance. Around the same time, my first studio film was in theaters, and that was Save the Last Dance. And then came lots of other films, Lift and Bad Company, which was actually the first time that I worked with Chris Rock, United States of Leland, and Against the Ropes, and Ray, and Last King of Scotland, and now this. I Think I Love My Wife.
So do I know your wife?
I don't think so.
Is she white?
No? Well, why would you ask that?
Don't get offended. Remember that girl you brought to Andre's party?
It was one girl at one party. I go out with one white girl, all of a sudden I'm Prince.
Playing Nikki was one of the hardest roles I've ever had to play. I mean, she was really fun on some days, but I also found her really exhausting. Because when I read her, I think the reason I was drawn to this character is because it's really easy to think of the other woman as a stereotype, or to see Nikki's character as that kind of traditional or stereotypical over-sexualized black woman, and I really wanted to make sure that she was a 3-dimensional human being that had psychological difficulties and emotional challenges and reasons for doing the things that she was doing. History and conflict within herself and esteem issues. So those were all things that I wanted to layer so that the behavior felt justified to my character. It was a survival tactic.
Hi.
Nikki's an old friend. What's it been like, 7, 8 years?
At least.
It's a challenging time to be a woman because there's a lot of pressure to be independent and self-reliant, and yet at the same time you're taught that you should use your feminine ways and be a woman and be sexy and beautiful and please a man and expect a man to take care of you to an extent. So I think it's a really confusing time, and I think she's caught in the confusion of that time.
You're so nice and clean.
Comedy for me is more like sport than any other kind of acting. You know, it's very much like being on a basketball team. It's definitely a team sport. You feel like everybody's in it to create the right thing, and you're constantly passing the ball and giving each other their moment and feeding off of each other. And I loved working with the Wayans brothers. And I was grateful for that experience because that was my first comedy, because I was really able to take care of myself as an actor on this film. Like I felt that I didn't need to worry about the comedy so much, and that Chris didn't need to worry about making sure that I was funny, because I had kind of wrapped my head around that, and so I could support him more in the drama part of it.
And cut.
We can fix that, yeah.
Yeah, but even that was better than we had
That's a
before.
cut.
Every director is super different. You know, working with Chris Rock is totally different from working with Taylor Hackford, is totally different from working with Spike Lee. I mean, they're totally different animals, each of them. I was joking with Chris a couple weeks ago, actually, that Chris directed me more in this film than Spike Lee did in She Hate Me, because Spike Lee doesn't really direct his actors. He's very much about the tableau of the imagery on screen, and so he has an arduous casting process where he really tries to make sure that he is casting the right person and the person that will be able to handle it, because once you're on set, you're kind of free falling. He's not worried about you. He trusts that you are going to do your job as an actor, which is, it's hard to get used to at first. It's really hard to get used to at first. I remember saying to the studio, you know, how are you going to sell this movie? Because it's a very unique film. You know, I don't think there's been a film like this about Black people. Maybe she's got to have it. You know, I mean, it's been a long time. And they said, we're probably going to objectify the hell out of you. I said, oh, okay. Which, you know, to an extent for me, if it has a purpose, that's fine. Like this, I think this is a really important film that people need to see. I don't mind, you know, having my butt on the poster, because it's important that people go see the movie. Hi, I'm Kerry Washington, and you're watching Real Black.